Ali Bagheri, the foreign policy deputy at Iran's Supreme National Security Council, said Iran has no intention of transferring enriched uranium abroad, according to Iranian state-linked reporting. The statement, reported by Press TV on February 2nd, signals Iran's public position ahead of planned negotiations. Bagheri said Iran has no intention of moving nuclear materials out of the country, even if Trump demands it, framing the issue as sovereignty and deterrence, according to state-linked reports. The statement positions Iran's stance as a matter of national principle. Some past proposals have discussed moving stockpiles abroad as a confident step, but Iran is rejecting that idea, according to state-linked reports. Previous diplomatic frameworks have included such transfers as verification mechanisms in nuclear negotiations. The statement comes amid what reporting describes as intense diplomatic maneuvering, with talks reportedly being arranged between U.S. and Iranian officials. The timing of Bagheri's statement, days before scheduled talks, signals Iran's opening position to potential negotiating partners. Bagheri's statement that Iran has no intention of moving nuclear materials out of the country represents Iran's clearest public position on uranium transfer ahead of the planned talks, according to Press TV reporting. The framing as sovereignty and deterrence indicates how Tehran views the issue publicly. Some past proposals have discussed moving stockpiles abroad as a confident step, but Iran is rejecting that idea publicly, according to state-linked reports. Whether private diplomatic channels discuss different arrangements cannot be determined from available reporting. Reuters reports the UN nuclear watchdog has pressed Iran to clarify what happened to its highly enriched uranium stock, and Iranian sources gave differing accounts about whether any material could be shipped abroad. The situation around Iran's nuclear stockpile involves ongoing international scrutiny. Whether Iran's stated position represents an absolute red line or an opening position subject to negotiation cannot be determined from the public statements alone. Diplomatic positions often shift during actual negotiations. Earlier reports had suggested Russia was ready to store or process enriched uranium for Iran, offering Moscow as a third-party custodian to unlock a deal. According to international reporting on the diplomatic discussions, the offer would position Russia as a key player in any agreement. Russia has also reportedly offered to broker a pathway toward an agreement between Iran and Washington, positioning itself as a mediator in the standoff, according to reporting on Moscow's diplomatic role. The dual offer of custody and mediation gives Russia significant potential leverage. Russia has offered to process or store uranium, but Bagheri's comments publicly push against any transfer abroad, and it is unclear what, if anything, is discussed privately. Public positions and private negotiations often differ in diplomatic contexts. Whether Russia's offer remains on the table despite Iran's public statements, or whether private diplomatic channels discuss different arrangements, cannot be determined from available reporting. The gap between public positions and private negotiations is a standard feature of diplomacy. Israeli officials have long argued for tougher limits on Iran's nuclear program. What they are pressing for in these specific talks is not confirmed in the reporting cited here. Israel's government has consistently advocated for more restrictive approaches to Iran's nuclear program. Iran's position that missiles are not negotiable, stated separately by Foreign Minister Araqchi, according to Reuters, combined with Bagheri's statement against uranium transfer, narrows the space for the kind of comprehensive deal some have advocated. How Israel responds to the talks proceeding, despite Iran's stated public positions, remains to be seen. Israeli officials have not publicly commented on Bagheri's specific statement about uranium transfers, according to available reporting. The relationship between Israeli preferences and actual U.S. negotiating positions is not transparent. What Washington seeks in the talks may or may not align with publicly reported Israeli positions. Despite the stated public positions, U.S. and Iranian officials are reportedly set to hold talks on nuclear issues, creating a near-term diplomatic opportunity that could shape military and diplomatic decisions, according to multiple reports. The talks proceed despite Iran's public statements. Reuters says U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araqchi are expected to meet, while other reports have differed on the venue, so location details should be treated as still in flux. The reporting indicates high-level engagement despite venue uncertainty. Reports say Araqchi would meet U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff, but the exact venue has been reported differently by different outlets. Some reports have mentioned Turkey, while others have suggested different locations. A regional diplomat told Reuters that representatives from countries such as Saudi Arabia and Egypt may also participate. The exact roster of participants and the format of any regional involvement remain subject to confirmation. Witkoff has been identified as Trump's lead envoy on Iran in reporting on the negotiations. The selection of Witkoff for this role reflects the administration's approach to the Iran file. The U.S. negotiating team's composition, drawing from Trump's circle rather than career diplomats, reflects the administration's approach to foreign policy and may signal flexibility that institutional channels might not offer. How Iran views the U.S. team composition has not been publicly stated. Tehran's decision to send Foreign Minister Araqchi suggests reciprocal seriousness about the talks, regardless of the American team's composition. The level of representation on both sides, a foreign minister from Iran and a presidential envoy from the U.S., indicates both parties are treating the engagement as substantive rather than preliminary. A regional diplomat told Reuters that representatives from countries such as Saudi Arabia and Egypt may also participate in the talks. The exact roster of participants has not been confirmed. Saudi officials have said they will not allow their airspace to be used for strikes, and the UAE has reiterated its territory will not be used for hostile action, reports say. These positions may make regional countries invested in diplomatic success. The potential regional format may create additional dynamics beyond bilateral U.S.-Iran negotiations. Each country that participates brings different relationships and interests to the table. How regional involvement affects the negotiations, whether it creates pressure for flexibility or complicates bilateral dynamics, remains to be seen. The format itself is subject to confirmation. Trump has continued urging Iran to come to the negotiating table while maintaining military pressure, signaling he still wants a diplomatic off-ramp even as he deploys forces to the region, according to reporting on his statements. Right now, we're talking to them. We're talking to Iran, and if we could work something out, that would be great. If we can't, probably bad things would happen, Trump said, according to reported remarks. The statement pairs diplomatic openness with implicit threat. Trump also issued what reporting describes as a fresh warning on February 2nd, demanding a deal or warning that bad things would happen, keeping coercion alongside diplomacy. The combination of negotiation and warning characterizes the administration's approach. Well, we're talking about that. We have ships heading to Iran right now, big ones, the biggest and the best. And we have talks going on with Iran. We'll see how it all works out, Trump said, according to reported comments. The pairing of military deployment with diplomatic engagement continues. Trump described the military buildup in explicit terms while maintaining emphasis on negotiations. Right now, we have a tremendous force going there, just like we did in Venezuela, even bigger. And they'll be there soon, Trump said, according to reported remarks. And I'd like to see a deal negotiated. I don't know that that's going to happen, but if I knew, I wouldn't be able to tell you. I'd be very foolish if I told you, Trump said, according to the reporting. The statement acknowledges uncertainty while maintaining pressure. Earlier, Trump confirmed Washington had sought talks with Tehran for a nuclear deal, framing negotiations as a U.S.-initiated attempt to prevent war, according to reporting on his position. This framing presents diplomacy as American initiative. The military deployment continues regardless of diplomatic activity. The Wall Street Journal reports U.S. officials say more air defenses are needed before any strike to protect bases and partners, suggesting preparations proceed on multiple tracks. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei responded to the diplomatic developments with conditional openness, according to Iranian state media. After a defeat in their latest plot, it is now they who again talk of diplomacy, Khamenei said, according to the reporting. We have always been ready for diplomacy on an equal footing, on condition of mutual respect and for meeting mutual interests, Khamenei said, according to state media. The framing positions Iran as responsive rather than seeking talks talks and sets conditions for engagement. The Iranian people must be spoken to in a respectful manner. Those who speak respectfully will also be responded to respectfully. And those who speak with threats and coercion will also be responded to accordingly, Khamenei said, according to the reporting. The statements frame Iran's diplomatic engagement as conditional on American tone and approach. Whether this represents a genuine condition or rhetorical positioning for domestic audiences cannot be determined from the statements alone. Khamenei addressed the relationship between diplomatic and military tracks in Iran's approach. We never relinquished diplomacy and have never lost an opportunity to secure the rights of the Iranian nation through diplomacy, Khamenei said, according to state media. We are in the same camp with the armed forces. They do their own task and we do ours, and we all together strive to uphold the rights of these people, defend the rights of these people, and maintain the security of these people, Khamenei said, according to the reporting. The statement frames diplomacy and military preparedness as complementary rather than alternative approaches. This messaging allows Iran to engage in talks while maintaining deterrence posture and military readiness. Iranian officials have consistently maintained this dual-track messaging during the current crisis period. Whether the balance shifts toward one track or the other depends on developments in both negotiations and military positioning. Khamenei also addressed recent domestic events in Iran, framing them within the context of external conflict. This time, it has come with a different form, with a different plot, Khamenei said, according to state media, without specifying details. These past 3 days, January 8th to 10th, have nothing to do with the people's protests and concerns. These 3 days were a continuation of those 12 days of the Israel-Iran war back in June, Khamenei said, according to the reporting. The framing attributes recent events to foreign interference rather than domestic grievances. During those 3 days, terrorist elements entered and weapons were brought in. Those 3 days should be separated from the 10 days. And those 3 days were a continuation of the 12 days of an unfair war by America and Israel against us, which suffered the same fate and was defeated, Khamenei said, according to state media. This characterization represents Iranian official framing of domestic events. International reporting describes recent unrest and government response differently, though specific details vary by source and time frame. Despite U.S. threats of conflict, Iran has remained defiant and has framed Trump as wanting negotiations from a position of weakness, portraying American outreach as a sign of pressure rather than strength, according to Iranian media framing of the situation. This messaging serves domestic political purposes by presenting Iran as negotiating from strength rather than responding to coercion. Whether it reflects actual Iranian assessment or rhetorical positioning cannot be determined from public statements. The framing contrasts with U.S. messaging that presents military deployment as leverage for negotiations. Both sides frame themselves as negotiating from positions of advantage, which may complicate actual talks. How these competing narratives affect the upcoming talks remains to be seen. Public positioning and private negotiations often differ significantly in diplomatic contexts. Separately from the uranium statement, Araqchi said Iran's defensive and missile capabilities would not be part of negotiations, according to Reuters. The position establishes another stated red line ahead of the talks. At the same time, he said Iran remains open to serious diplomacy as long as its legal rights and security concerns are respected, according to the reporting. The combination of stated red lines and openness characterizes Iran's public approach. The position frames Iran's nuclear program as potentially subject to negotiation, while maintaining that missile capabilities are outside the scope of any talks. This framework differs from reported U.S. preferences for comprehensive negotiations covering multiple issues. Combined with Bagheri's statement on uranium transfers, Iran's public positions significantly narrow the scope of what can be negotiated publicly. Whether private discussions explore options beyond these stated positions remains unknown. The gap between reported U.S. demands and Iranian stated public positions presents significant challenges for the upcoming talks. Washington reportedly seeks comprehensive changes, including on the uranium stockpile and missile programs. Iran has publicly stated uranium will not be transferred abroad, missiles are not negotiable, and talks must be conducted with mutual respect on an equal footing. These stated positions leave limited space for the kind of agreement the U.S. has reportedly sought. Israeli officials have long argued for tougher limits on Iran's nuclear program. What they are pressing for in these specific talks is not confirmed confirmed in the reporting cited here. The relationship between various parties' preferences is not fully transparent. Whether the talks can find common ground within these stated constraints or whether positions shift during actual negotiations will determine the outcome. Opening positions in diplomacy often differ from final agreements. The upcoming talks create a near-term opportunity that could shape both military and diplomatic decisions. The proximity of the discussion suggests both sides see urgency in engaging despite public posturing. If talks produce progress, military dynamics may be affected. If talks fail or produce no breakthrough, pressure for alternative approaches may increase. The near-term engagement creates a decision point for both sides. The potential regional format involving Arab states adds stakeholders invested in outcomes. These countries face consequences from both conflict and from deals they find unfavorable, creating complex incentives. Whether the talks represent a genuine opportunity for breakthrough or a preliminary meeting that leads to further talks cannot be determined in advance. Both outcomes remain possible based on available information. Military positioning continues regardless of diplomatic activity. The drone shoot-down incident on Tuesday, with CENTCOM reporting an Iranian drone approached the USS Abraham Lincoln and was shot down by an F-35C, demonstrates ongoing operational tensions. Reports show additional F-15Es have deployed and F-35As were seen transiting toward Europe. Final destination not confirmed. THAAD and Patriot air defense systems are reportedly being deployed to U.S. bases across the Middle East. The continuation of military preparations alongside diplomatic engagement reflects both sides' hedging strategies. Neither wants to be caught unprepared if talks fail, creating parallel tracks that could accelerate or decelerate based on diplomatic outcomes. The risk of miscalculation remains elevated during periods combining military deployment and active diplomacy. Incidents like the drone shoot-down demonstrate how quickly situations can develop, requiring immediate decisions. The upcoming talks represent the most significant direct diplomatic engagement between U.S. and Iranian officials during the current crisis. The outcome remains uncertain given the gaps between stated public positions. Bagheri's statement that Iran has no intention of transferring uranium abroad establishes a public position going into talks. Whether this represents an absolute red line or negotiating leverage will become clearer through the diplomatic process. Trump's combination of military warnings and diplomatic overtures continues the administration's dual-track approach. The talks proceed alongside ongoing military deployments and recent incidents. The potential regional participants add dimensions beyond bilateral negotiations. Their involvement may create additional pressure or provide face-saving options for both principal parties. Ali Bagheri, the foreign policy deputy at Iran's Supreme National Security Council, said Iran has no intention of transferring enriched uranium abroad, according to Iranian state-linked reporting. The statement signals Iran's public position ahead of planned negotiations. Russia has offered to process or store uranium, but Bagheri's comments publicly push against any transfer abroad, and it is unclear what, if anything, is discussed privately. Public positions and private negotiations often differ. Reuters says U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araqchi are expected to meet, while other reports have differed on the venue, so location details should be treated as still in flux. A regional diplomat told Reuters that representatives from countries such as Saudi Arabia and Egypt may also participate. Trump continues to pair military warnings with diplomatic openings. Right now, we're talking to them. We're talking to Iran. And if we could work something out, that would be great. If we can't, probably bad things would happen, Trump said, according to reported remarks. The outcome of the upcoming talks remains uncertain as both military and diplomatic tracks proceed in parallel.